I was working the graveyard shift as the lone security guard at the Aldridge Public Library back when it still stayed open all night. Normally, only a handful of souls wandered through the stacks, maybe 2 or 3 students cramming for exams, a researcher pulling rare microfilm. But I never got to slack off. Whenever nobody was around, I was expected to patrol every floor, straighten books, or tidy reading tables. It was a sprawling, 3-story building, so even at 2 a.m., I might run into one of the custodians polishing marble steps or another guard doing inventory. This night, though, I was truly alone. I was midway down the science fiction section on the 2nd floor, straightening a row of vintage paperbacks, when I heard a book tumble somewhere beyond me. The sound echoed through the silent corridor, sharp and sudden, like a shot in a cathedral. I froze, heart pounding, and listened. For a moment, there was nothing. No HVAC hum, no faint creak of settling floorboards. Then I heard the main glass doors swing open on the ground floor, the metal frame rattling as if someone had thrown their weight against it. I clicked off the flashlight on my belt, but it took a second longer than I expected for my eyes to adjust to the dim reading lamps overhead. I stepped out into the aisle and peered down toward the stairwell. "Hello," I called, voice low. "Is anyone there?" My words sounded brittle in the vacuum of the library. From a far end, I spotted him, a man standing in the fiction stacks, relief patterns of the ornate ceiling above him. He wore an old tweed coat, buttoned too high, and his face was half illuminated by the fluorescent light. His mouth was slightly open, lips pressed forward as if in perpetual thought. He held a single volume in his hand, something with a crimson cover. He didn't lower his gaze when I questioned him. Instead, he stared blankly, eyes unmoving. "Can I help you find something?" I called again, descending the steps 2 at a time. My boots clicked on each marble tread. As I neared, the man's lips parted. I need directions," he said, his voice flat, almost confused. "Could you point me to the old archives?" I scribbled in my mind that the archives were sealed until morning. No one was allowed entry after midnight. I sideways glanced at the closed metal gate at the end of the corridor. "Archives are closed right now," I replied. "But if you move this way, the restroom is around the corner." I hoped he'd turn and leave. He took a slow step forward. I noticed then that his coat was too big for his frame, sleeves dangling past pale hands. His eyes caught the faint glow of my flashlight as I clicked it back on. "No," he replied, voice dropping. "I must find it now." He held up the crimson book. I realized it was the library's single copy of an 1867 ledger, Aldridge's first census log, on special reserve. "I need entries 12 through 18, he said, as though reading lines from script. I felt a chill. "Sir, that's only accessible in the morning. The staff locks it in the back safe." My words came out rushed. "You can come back after 6. The man tilted his head, silent for a beat. Then he spoke softly. "You do this every night? Alone?" He advanced a step as if curious. "Do you like it here?" He cradled the book as if it were a child's toy. His question was so odd I shrugged. "It's quiet," I said. "I study read. I guess it's peaceful." "Peaceful," he echoed, stepping to my left. The dim light cast strange shadows on his face. The skin under his cheekbones looked hollow. "Peaceful as a tomb." I swallowed, shifting my flashlight beam onto his face. His lips pursed, resembling someone sculpted from wax. I looked away, not wanting to stare. "Look, He cut me off with a soft laugh. "What did you study? You're young." He reached out, pale fingers brushing the notepad I kept in my jacket pocket. With a sudden jerk, I yanked it out of his reach. "Nothing," I said. The corridors felt too narrow. I decided to walk him out. "Let's go, sir," toward the lobby. I started guiding him backward. He trailed me several paces behind, silent except for the faint scuff of his leather shoes against the carpet. We reached the main floor. The marble lobby was illuminated by a single chandelier, its crystals swaying gently. I pressed the button on the security terminal, unlocking the front doors with a hiss. "Please head out," I insisted. "You can't stay here." He pointed to an old oak table by the circulation desk. "Wait, what's your name?" he asked. I frowned. I hadn't given my name to any patron in months. Usually they only ask for directions. Mira, I answered. The name fits. He cocked his head. You're what, 22? His tone was accusatory, casual at once. I nodded tightly. Yes. He took a step closer. Do you have a boyfriend? I froze. No. I hadn't realized I'd stopped breathing until I exhaled. His head dipped sideways, and he pressed a knuckle to his lips parted just enough that I saw the darkness inside his mouth. Warming urgency flooded me. I needed to put distance between us. I grabbed my flashlight, ready to push him aside if necessary. The man put his hand on my shoulder. It was cold, leaden. Ever been kissed? He whispered. My skin prickled. Stop it, I said. I tried to pull away, but he tightened his grip. I yanked my shoulder free and stepped back, nearly stumbling over a rolling book cart left nearby. He let me go but didn't move. You should smile more, he said. It's so quiet here you could kill for company. His lips curved into something like a grin. My pulse hammered. I took another shaky breath. Just go, I urged. Please. Finally, he turned, shuffling slowly toward the door. I watched his shoulders slump as he picked up the pace, then flinched when he looked back over his shoulder at me, eyes hollow. With a faint sigh, he disappeared out the glass doors. I stood there for a long moment, heart still rattling. I pressed the door closed, locked it, double-checked the latch. Then I realized I needed to check the CCTV feeds in the security office before resuming my rounds. I told myself he was gone, that he'd left and probably wandered off to some other building. I slid the cart of returned books down toward the back hall and stepped into the security alcove, dimly lit by monitors. I passed the time checking feeds, the stacks, the stairwells, each floor. But when I looked at the camera trained on the restroom hallway, something made my blood run cold. The little corner of that hallway was dark, the motion sensor light flickering like a dying spark. For a second, I thought I saw someone standing at the threshold, taller than before, shoulders slumped, face obscured by shadows. Then the image blinked to static. I leaned forward, squinted. The moment it flickered back, the hallway was empty. I flicked off the monitor in case I was imagining things, then moved to open the door leading to the mezzanine where the bathrooms were located. I didn't need to use the restroom, but I felt a surge of dread that compelled me to make sure no one was lurking. As I walked past the marble busts of local authors, I heard a faint click behind me. The security office door closed. I spun around. Hello. I called, voice shaking. No answer. The corridor beyond the restroom entrance was dim, just the low hum of air ducts. I told myself I imagined the click, but I felt uneasy. So I crept forward, hand on the hilt of the small pocket knife I carried in my jacket. The library's employee restroom was at the end of the corridor, a heavy wooden door marked staff only. I slid it open with a squeak, slid inside, and flipped on the light. The stall doors were the old metal kind that never quite lined up flush. I heard a faint noise from the last stall, something like a heavy drag or a chair being pushed. I stiffened, heart pounding. I took a deep breath and stepped toward the first stall, emptied. Nothing. The second, empty too. But the third stall? The slight gap at its base revealed darkness. I crept closer. The noise stopped. My breath caught as I noticed a fold of dark fabric beneath the door. I pressed my ear to the gap. A breathy exhale came through. He was inside. With a silent click, I found the lock on the inside of my jacket and retrieved my pocket knife. My fingers trembled as I flipped it open, a slender stainless blade, only 3 inches long. Enough to protect myself. I cleared my throat. Hey, this is the employee bathroom. I kept my voice low but firm. You need to come out now. No response. Only the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I slid the knife's tip gently against the metal stall door, pushing it into the crack between door and frame. The metal groaned softly. The moment I nudged harder, a pail I shot open, staring straight at me through the narrow gap. I froze. The eye was wide with panic or madness. I couldn't tell. It flickered with reflected light. A small, circular pool of white in a face that was otherwise lost to shadow. I sucked in air and rotated the knife, the blade pressing just behind the bone that shoved the door outward. The man's eye snapped shut, his heavy brow furrowing. I pushed my entire body weight into the door, forcing it open. He lurched forward into view. That same lanky frame, coat stained at the hem, hair matted. I swung the blade out, raised it waist high. My breath came in short bursts. He opened his mouth to say something, but I flinched backward. "Get out!" I growl, my voice brittle. "Right now." He took a slow step backward, his hand clenching a binding around the red ledger, the one he'd stolen from the archives earlier. "You don't understand," he rasped, voice hollow. He lurched, staggering out of the stall. I sidestepped, keeping my blade pointed between us. "Stay back." He didn't obey. Instead, he advanced, the ledger cradled like a talisman. His eyes darted around the cramped room. "It's mine," he hissed. "My parents belonged here. I need to know." In that instant, something deep inside me snapped. The corridor beyond the door was empty. I was trapped. I forced myself to step forward, falling into a garbled jumble of thoughts. I needed to stop him, retrieve the book, call the police. He lunged, shoving me. I stumbled backward, slashing midair. The knife missed him, lodging crumb deep into the stall wall. He screamed, the sound tearing through my ears. I seized the ledger from his outstretched arms, clutched it to my chest, and bolted. Rain pounded against the tall windows on the first floor when I burst out of the restroom corridor, dripping from head to toe, sheet lightning flickering shadows across the marble floors. The temperature must have plummeted. My breaths came in frosty clouds. I kept my distance from the restroom door, clutching the ledger as if it were proof of survival. Through the lobby, I raced toward the front entrance, only to see him standing at the threshold, drenched, water dripping from his coat sleeves. His mouth hung open like a silhouette, wide and dark. For a moment, he didn't move. It was as if he was carved from the rainy night itself. Then he raised a hand, curling a finger in a beckoning gesture. I screamed, an ungodly sound I didn't know I could make. I ripped the heavy doors open and plunged into the storm, rain lashing my face, skyline lights smeared red and orange through sheets of water. I didn't look back until I hit the sidewalk. My ears still rang with his scream. I dialed 911, voice shaking so hard I could barely speak. I told the dispatcher someone had stolen a rare ledger from the library and nearly assaulted me. I watched the front doors through the microscope of my phone's screen. Emptied now, his reflection nowhere to be seen in the glass. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. They swept through the building, radio crackling, flashlights cutting swaths of brightness through the shadows. I sat on the marble steps, wrapped in a filthy blanket held by one of the officers. I told them everything. How he appeared in the stacks, his blank stare, his whispering questions, the stolen ledger, the assault in the bathroom. They glanced at me with compassion and suspicion in equal measure. They found no trace of him, no footprints in the rainy doorway, no fingerprints anywhere except my own panic-sweaty prints on a bathroom door. I handed the ledger over to the senior detective, my fingers numb from both cold and adrenaline. He flipped through the brittle pages, puzzled. "It's intact," he said, disbelief in his tone. "Will someone know it was here?" I only shook my head. There was no way to prove it had been in his hands at all. I realized then I may never know why he wanted those pages, or who he really was. They escorted me home, making me promise not to go back in alone. After that, I only worked 2 more overnight shifts. I never saw him again. But sometimes when I lie in bed on stormy nights, I can still hear the echo of his scream, faint as a library sigh. Sometimes I imagine him pacing the dark stacks, searching for lost names in that ledger, haunted by something I can't quite name. And I wonder if, somewhere deep in that catalog of ghosts, his story remains hidden, waiting for someone braver than me to read it aloud.